So they drop Mr. Sinister. They're not going to get the upside out of Grand Central here, and we're going to get our Mojo buff. So we are going to barely take this lane. Oh, and they're completely capped out. They're completely tapped out. Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So it is finally that time. We are able to pull another mystery card. It has been 2 days since we were able to pull one, so we're really anticipating something good. We're hoping for something really game breaking. But before I pull the card, I just want to say that thank you guys for all of the support and feedback. That continued feedback is pushing me to continue to make higher and higher quality content. And if you're watching this video and you like the content, you like Marvel Snap content, and you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. It really does help the channel grow and expand. With that being said, let's go ahead and rip the band-aid off. Let's pull our new card, Green Goblin. Okay, so this is a card that we have wanted. We wanted to play this in our Debrii deck, and so I think this is the perfect time to bring that back around. So let me kind of draft something, make some changes, and then we'll be back. So when you think about Green Goblin, he can slot into several decks okay, but I feel like where he really shines is in a deck list where you are really trying to send as much junk onto the enemy side of the board as possible, so you can 1, flood their lanes, and 2, make their combos difficult. You can reduce the power that they have on the board. A lot of good things come from having Green Goblin in this type of deck. So before I run through the entire list, I am going to throw the last Debrii decks list up above. And I want to go over some of the key differences of what we're doing this time versus last time. So last time we really leaned into some of our more powerful combos. We had Nova, which definitely helps in a swarm type deck. I feel like that is still probably a good choice, but I want to future-proof myself, and I want to get away from utilizing Nova as often as I can. The next kind of busted or broken combo that we had used in the last video was our Lady Sif Ghost Rider. So Lady Sif Ghost Rider was used to cheat out either Odin or Hobgoblin, and 1, get a lot of power onto the board really cheap, and then 2, send a really expensive Hobgoblin their way. So it gave us a lot of value for not a lot of cost, and I wanted to see if we can make this deck viable, if we can make it work without using that kind of cheat out method. The rest is fairly similar, but I'm going to take the deck list away and go through our deck. First up, we have the Hood, which is a very cheap card. It's going to be a target for either Carnage or Viper once we drop that first iteration, or if we draw into Bar with No Name, of course we can drop the Hood there to win it, being that it would give us negative value. Second, we added Ebony Maw back into the deck. So Ebony Maw being a kind of difficult card. So usually you want to have Ebony Maw and Viper so that you can send you can send Maw over into their lane, and then with Ebony Maw's ongoing ability, they won't be able to play cards in that lane anymore. But the drawback to Ebony Maw is that you can't play it after turn 3. So I added it back into this deck list because there are times where I'm okay with not playing anything additional in a lane, because we're going to fill it up with junk and other stuff by around turn 3, turn 4. So at that point, I'm really okay with capping it out and not playing any additional cards. So if we get to send it onto their lane, great. If not, I think we can make it work and work within that confinement. The next card in the deck list is Hazmat. Hazmat initially seems a little underwhelming, and honestly, I think right now, as it is, a Nova is going to be stronger than having Hazmat in a perfectly balanced deck where you send all of your stuff their way. So Hazmat is going to, on reveal, give all other cards -1 power. That is both yours and the opponent's cards. And at a 1 power card, how much upside are you getting? So if they have 4 more cards than you, then you're dropping a 2/5, which is not a huge game-changing swinging 2 cost. But I do think it fits in this deck okay, especially if we're able to drop some rocks and then we eat our rocks to buff up. Even though they're negative, we eat it with Carnage. Maybe they get stuck with their rocks, something of the sort. But Hazmat honestly feels a little underwhelming, but I think it fits the theme well. I want to make Hazmat work, so last time the goal was to make Debrii work and a Debrii deck viable. Now I want to make Hazmat work within that deck archetype. And then we have Carnage mainly as a lane cleanup. So with us throwing the Hood and Debrii and other junk around, we need something to be able to clean up those lanes when we do that. And so that tool being Carnage. The next card is Mojo. Mojo worked so very well in this deck list. Usually Mojo is a little hard to make sure we can guarantee that the ongoing ability triggers, But with this one and us throwing debris rocks around, us moving cards around with Juggernaut, it makes it a lot easier for us to guarantee that a lane is going to be completely filled on both sides. And so then we can get the upside, the +6 power of Mojo, so then it becomes a 2 cost, 8 power drop, which is really, really good for a 2 cost. And then following that, we have Viper. Viper on reveal, your opponent gains control of one of your other cards at this location. Initially seems like a pretty bad drawback, but whenever we can send like maybe a negative rock, or we can send the Hood, or an Ebony Maw, or even just a regular rock, it becomes really powerful. So we're getting that additional upside of sending them junk, and we are clearing our lane a little bit. We're giving ourselves a little breathing room. So in a junk, just flood type deck, I think Viper performs very, very well. And of course, our new card, Green Goblin, which slots into this deck really, really well. On reveal, your opponent gains control of this. This is like a discounted Hobgoblin, and it's okay that it's only -3. We don't really need the negative portion if we can cap out their lane early. And so that's what we want to do with Green Goblin. And then we actually tried to run an iteration of this deck without Rogue, and then all we faced were Iron Men and Devil Dinos, and that was it. We could have swung so many games just by having Rogue and playing Rogue that it just felt so bad not having her in hand that I decided to add her back to the deck list. And then we have Debrii. So Debrii being a pretty cool card, and this deck really leans into utilizing her utility, but she can slot into several decks pretty well. She may even be more powerful in certain scenarios than like a Cosmo or another tech card, because you can use your knowledge and your information of what the opponent's going to do to maybe block them. A lot of times we have blocked out a Nova lane where they're no longer able to drop a Carnage because we dropped Debrii and finish filling it out. And a couple of other really cool things that Debrii can do that offer a lot of really cool utility. And so maybe not a whole deck around her, but maybe you slot her into some other deck archetypes just as some added utility. And then the last couple of cards, we have Juggernaut. On reveal, if your opponent played here a card this turn, move it. So this is going to work for us in really trying to cap out and finalize 2 lanes. And so with Juggernaut, we can drop it in a lane, push a card over. Hopefully that's in a lane that already has Debrii and maybe a Green Goblin, or Debrii, or not Debrii, but a rock from Debrii and Green Goblin, and maybe something else like the Hood to finish capping it out because we shifted over. And then Polaris being a very similar card, except for we can kind of guarantee that a card is going to get picked up and pulled over, because Polaris on reveal, move an opposing 1 or 2 cost card to that location. And then rounding out the deck list, we have Spider-Woman. So Spider-Woman on reveal, afflict all enemy cards with -1 power. So this becomes a 4 power or 4 cost, 8 power swing if you can drop this into a full lane for your opponent. So I think this is the perfect card to kind of finalize like a Mojo lane or swing certain lanes in our favor, especially if we have dropped kind of an early Hazmat, and then have their cards kind of be negative. Maybe they have a Green Goblin, we make it further negative. It makes Iron Man hard to use. If they have some like really low power after dropping everything, Iron Man becomes a lot less efficient. And then we do have Rogue to kind of stop the Devil Dino meta, and so we can kind of use that in combination to steal their Devil Dino ability, drop their power down 1 with Spider-Woman. If they had dropped an Iron Man there, it's no longer useful because you took all of the power away anyways. But that is the general idea of the deck. We are going to go ahead and switch over, and we're going to go ahead and jump to some games. Let's see how they go. So we do get to go up against Unit 0. We have in hand our Debrii and a Green Goblin. We have Mojo. We have some decent cards. And the big house is decent for us. We only have 1 card that's over that cost. So I think maybe we play our Hood. Maybe we just play Mojo. Play Mojo, get him out onto the board. We don't know what this last location is going to be, and so we can kind of play around that depending on what it turns out. And so at end of turn 5, put a card for each player from each player's hand here. Okay, so if we do something like Hood, Ebony Maw, we're going to be able to drop a Debrii to finish this one out. And so maybe we can get them to either that, or it turns into Grand Central. A card gets dragged in at the end of turn 5 anyways. but it feels okay to kind of cap out myself in that location, and we get to play the Ebony Maw instead of it kind of going to waste. So it does turn into Grand Central. So I think we're going to be able to guarantee that this one gets capped out, and that Mojo is going to be playable. So now it's all about winning one of the other two, because I think between 2 6-cost cards, we have a decent shot. And maybe we still do like a Debrii Flood, but right now it doesn't feel like we absolutely need to. We have some decent power in our low-cost cards, and I think maybe we lean into that here. We drop a Demon, we drop Green Goblin, so it's going to be a 9-point swing. Ooh, and they dropped 2 cards here, which is really good, depending on what they dropped. They dropped Cable and Angela. I can now drop Debrii in this right lane and get a lot of upside out of it. But then, of course, we're not going to draw a card in, which it could draw Carnage, so I'm okay with that. Oy. But it pulling a card in over here is going to be iffy. Like, I don't necessarily want it to pull any of the cards that I have left. Because Spider-Woman, I would really like to be able to drop here. Actually, if it drops Spider-Woman now... You stole my Viper. That's what you did. I was like, if it drops a card here now, we'll get a pretty big upside out of Spider-Woman. So maybe it'll be decent. So they drop Mr. Sinister. They're not going to get the upside out of Grand Central here, and we're going to get our Mojo buff. So we are going to barely take this lane. Oh, and they're completely capped out. They're completely tapped out. We pulled in Carnage, which is... we did it. We hit him with the dream. So our Debrii was able to fill up the big house. It was able to make it where they couldn't drop anything additional here. And then because of all the cards that got pulled in or happened, they were capped out here. Just a really unfortunate kind of series for them. Good for us. So we will take that victory, and we will try and run with it. I think we're up against a bot in Phyllis. Either that or this is an avatar that I'm unaware of. I haven't seen Electra as an avatar. And I know that there's some scenarios where some people, I don't know if it's linked to higher collection log levels or higher MMR. I don't know exactly what it's linked to. But I know there are some people that have been getting some unreleased avatar bots that they're playing up against, and their decks are usually pretty solid. You know, the days of a completely uncohesive, just random deck, that is not what these bots typically run. These bots seem a little bit harder than your average computer. So we did draw into the Viper portion of our deck. We're gonna send the Hood their way, and they're gonna get some negative downside from it. So it looks like, I don't know what they're running. A lot of low cost cards. They have some really cool like variants, but and then we do have Debrii. The thing, they're able to kind of shift around with Nightcrawler a little bit, but I think maybe we lean in, and we have Carnage. So do we lean in? We drop Debrii. We wait, and hopefully they drop quite a bit of power onto the board, so that we can continue getting like that upside. We want to have a lot less power than they have, or a lot less cards onto the board when we drop our Hazmat. Or the ones that we're dropping, we want to be able to destroy pretty easily. So is now the turn to drop our Debrii, and then followed by a Mojo, and then we'll be able to Carnage this lane as needed. I think so. I think that's how we want to play it. And so depending on how many cards they dropped 1, and so they're going to get 1 additional downside from the Hazmat. So it's affecting us 4, it's affecting them 8, so that's a 5 power swing. And then they snapped. Why so confident? So at the end of turn 5, cards here are going to go to random locations. But why so confident? I think we're in a pretty decent spot. I'm going to Carnage this lane to get some upside, some additional upside here. And then do we ever cap this out? We could do that. We could do Polaris here to try and pull a card over if they don't play here. I think maybe we do that. Then we can do our demon, we can do a rogue, we can do a juggernaut. We have a couple of options for our last turn. But I think that's how we want to play it. It limits where Debris can go in being over here. And so Debris will end up being a 0 power card, but it's not a negative. So it doesn't have as much of a downside for us. And so they do finish capping out this lane with Sentinel. So we don't get any necessarily downside from playing Polaris. We just don't get the upside of having a card that is pulled over to kind of surprise them into having it capped out. And so we win this lane regardless. We don't have to do anything at this point. They had Agent 13 pull over. Do we do... How do we lean in? I think we lean in by doing our rogue here. A rogue demon. So that will take 10 away from them. It'll give us 6, but then there's -2. I think this wins it. I don't think... So even with a Nova combo in the middle, they wouldn't be able to swing a 14-point gap. They wouldn't be able to swing whatever this negative is going to be. I think we have a pretty solid shot. Maybe I shouldn't snap against bots. I always feel a little bad. It's like I'm stealing cubes. But they are a mystery or an unreleased avatar, so we want to really take that into account. Oh my lord, what? I'm speechless. Absolutely speechless. So if you were ever wondering how to run a destroyer in your deck, that's not it. So we do draw into the Ebony Maw Viper portion of our decks, or of our deck. So we're gonna go ahead and drop Maw turn 1. Normally we have to wait until turn 3 to do the combo, but with Lemuria, we're able to drop it and not have to worry. So I'm going to drop it in mid, because I think if they drop a card, they'll drop it in Lemuria. And no cards anywhere are revealed this turn. So we can go ahead and drop it wherever we want and not have to worry about it. So they do get an extra energy this turn. But luckily, we're going to be able to kind of right-size that and send a card over their way. They're not going to get that upside for too long. And so we will drop the Viper, send Ebony Maw, and then we do have Debris, we have Rogue. We just need 3 additional power in the Superflow to win that lane. So maybe it's that we drop our Debris there and get the rocks into the other 2 lanes, and then we can kind of play around from there. And so then the Ebony Maw Viper combo coming in turn 2. They didn't drop anything this turn, which is interesting. They had 3 power, so they may be running a really high-powered deck. So like high cost. So, and I think we do. So we don't want to run Juggernaut really anymore, because even though cards can't be played in this lane for them, they can be added. So Juggernaut can push cards over in that direction, and we don't really want to make that happen. So I am going to drop Debris. It's going to shoot a card into Lemuria and Shadowland for both of us. But the idea being that they accidentally, or we get them to cap themselves out, and that way they don't get the upside, or yeah, they don't get the upside of whatever combo they were trying to run. Okay, and so they just drop a cable, and so kind of scary what they can pull, because they could have pulled our Polaris, which would then allow them to pull a card out of mid. Nope, they didn't pull our Polaris. Do we ever gamble with Polaris here? Would there be any upside, any value to it? So they are going to have initiation, but they could be running some kind of carnage. So we could drop Polaris and hope that it doesn't pull Maw over, because if it does, it clears that lane. It really defeats what we were trying to do. Or we could drop Polaris here to pull one of these cards. And then even if they drop a Carnage, we pull it over into this lane. I don't know that that's the best play line, but that's the one we're going to go with. Because it'll pull a 1 or 2 drop card. If they drop Carnage, it has a chance of pulling that one over. And if it doesn't pull it over, that's okay. I think that just locking down Superflow is going to be good. And so they stole our Green Goblin. That's what they stole from us with Cable was our Green Goblin. So Ant-Man not being a bad card to pull over there, in that it is not going to be able to trigger the ongoing ability. They're not going to be able to trigger it here. Overall, fairly nice card to grab. And then we have one additional turn after this one. They still have initiation. Do we give up on this lane? Do we give up on this lane? I think we play into over here because we have more space to play. If we drop this card now, we're locking it out. Maybe if we get a Carnage, if we draw into Carnage, I think we can swing this lane even. But I think we play as if we're not going to, and then we kind of go from there. Okay, so they had Deathlog, so we're not going to be able to swing that lane even with a Carnage, I don't think. But they didn't have like a Nova combo, so it's okay. It doesn't feel terrible. We get a 3-card Spider-Woman off, which helps us swing this left side. And then we can do a secret sneaky Mojo. It's just a matter of where do we want to drop it. So they're going to be able to move Nightcrawler over. And they used Deathlock already. So could there ever be a scenario where they have a Nova? I think there could. We have initiation here. This is going to be a gamble. This is going to be a risky gamble. So what I'm going to do is drop Juggernaut. We have priority, so if they do drop a Nova Carnage, which would swing this lane if they move Nightcrawler over, that we'll be able to send it somewhere else, and they will no longer get that upside. And then this balances out, and then if we get the Carnage, great. If not, it's okay too. I think that's what we lock in with. It may have been a bad read since they seceded, but I always feel like they always have Nova in hand, and so it would have shot either Carnage here or here and Nova here or here, and so it would have eaten one of their lanes unintentionally, and it would have locked out one of their lanes unintentionally. So I think we had a really good shot of just winning, but I don't know, it could have been a bad play line because we're not going to win this one, and now we're sending resources around. I don't know. So we have Mazen in K, or Mazen AK. We have the Hood, we have Viper. So I think what we intend to do, and then Dark Dimension, which cards played there are not revealed until the game ends. So that becomes a little tricky to play around, but I think what we do is we send our Hood over with Viper. Next turn we'll drop Green Goblin somewhere, and then we can do a Hazmat as well. Because if they don't play here, then we can get the upside. They're not going to get the upside from Atlantis. With the Collector, maybe. I think we send the Green Goblin. I don't like the New York, so on turn 6 you can move cards to this location. I do like the idea of having this one capped out, but I also think that it's important to limit how many cards he can move, because if he can move everything but one card out of Atlantis, he can create a pretty big power swing there. And he's only going to be able to move cards from this location because these won't be revealed yet. But I think we do start dropping some resources into New York, or start feeding. Oh, and we would have capped this one out, so maybe our original would have been better. And it's a Devil Dino. Okay, so we can draw into Rogue, and so which is why we added her back into the deck list. So we have Debris. We're going to send a rock here and here to kind of limit the amount of play or wiggle room that they're able to have on turn 6. It also limits ours, but maybe we even at some point follow this up with a Hazmat here and then a Carnage to have the +5 power in this lane. That might be worthwhile, depending on what our draw line is otherwise. So they play a card here. If it's a Carnage, it's unfortunate. So it's a Jubilee, so they do cap out this lane with a Chavez? No, okay, so they don't cap out the lane. They draw into a Nightcrawler, which is not a good card to pull from, but we do know they're only going to be able to move one card in to this location. So we did draw into Rogue. So with Rogue, they're going to get some pretty big downs, or with Hazmat. Right now we have 4 cards. They have 8. So they're going to lose an additional 8, and then whatever they play this turn would be impacted as well. And then we're going to drop Rogue to steal their Devil Dinosaur bonus. And I think we can really demoralize and swing this game. And of course, we do have our 6-power demon hidden in Dark Dimension. So I think we have a lot of good play lines going on. They did snap, but I just, maybe they have a Carnage combo hidden in there, which they could. They could, and that would be a pretty big buff across the board for them. But we of course hit their 9 cards with our Hazmat versus our 4, and then we steal their Devil Dino buff. And so look at their board. Their board is beautiful. Do we ever do something like this? Oy vey. Okay. So if they get a Nova Carnage combo off, that's going to give... Never mind. I was about to do the calculations, but it would give them 8 here, and so this would of course swing that lane for us, because they would go up to 4. We would go up to 4. This lane would be 12, and so the 8 wouldn't be enough to swing this one unless they also had a Moon Girl. I don't know. It could have been close, but overall, that felt like we finally got a good use out of Hazmat. Even if they had an Iron Man, they couldn't drop him anywhere. We were able to send quite a few resources their way. It just felt really, really good, really strong and solid. So I do enjoy that one, but I do want to play at least one more and see what we can do. So I am smiling because we have Kamar Taj, which allows our Debrii to trigger twice. It allows Spider-Woman to trigger twice. Green Goblin, I don't know. I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to potentially drop him there to send him this way and then send him back. But we do have some really cool play lines that we're going to be able to play into. And so next turn I'm going to drop Debrii, and then that it kind of opens up some play lines or play wiggle room that we have. So we can then either drop Green Goblin to send over to like Xandar. We could drop Carnage to eat the rocks that we'd throw down. Some really cool... Then we have Ebony Maw, which we're not going to be able to use. And do we ever want to use him? We could send him here. We could also get there. I don't think it's worth... I think we just hold him at this point. Because we could send him in Muir Island, and then he could also get the benefits of the double rocks, which they're being buffed up, but I just don't think it's... I don't think it's worthwhile. So they do drop a Devil Dino into Muir Island. So if we can cap that out, we know that they won't be able to have an Iron Man, which is a really big card from Muir Island, because you're able to kind of really exponentially grow that double. So instead of getting +1 each turn, you're getting +2 to each card, while your opponent's still only getting +1. So they have this lane for now. We also have a... Okay. So we also have a rogue that we can draw into that would steal Devil Dino away. I think what we're going to do is drop Juggernaut here. I don't think they finish capping these lanes out. I think they're going to try and stack some cards here. And so I think we play within that. I also think maybe we drop the Hood, because that'll give us 2 demons to kind of split our power. That's 12 power for 2 cards. And then if it looks like we need to swing this lane, we have Spider-Woman that can come in and do a double negative, a double on reveal, afflict all cards here with -1 ability, and really kind of help start swinging that lane. And so we are going to push Juggernaut. It just depends on which lane he goes into, either Muir Island, which is ideal. Yes, he'll start getting buffed up, but we know that he's not going to. We know that he's not going to drop an Iron Man there, which I think is really important to know and to have that information. Drawing into a Rogue here would just be perfect, but we unfortunately don't. So how do we play this, or how do we want to play this? Do we finish capping this out, knowing that he's not going to be able to move any cards? Like, is that enough? So it would be 8 plus 6. So we'd have a 14 power swing, which would be 18. I don't think we do. And maybe we don't invest any resources there. Maybe we invest our resources here and here. And then here. And then depending on what he drops, we could do a Spider-Woman, which will be a -2, but I also think we have to worry about him potentially dropping a Nova combo on us. So if he drops a Nova combo on us, in Camartage, no, it's a Jubilee. It's interesting in a Devil Dino deck, which pulls in Chavez and Carnage, which eats the Chavez. Oh my gosh. What luck. What luck. And so if we get Rogue, we can drop it in Muir Island to swing that one. We don't get Rogue, so how do we best play this? So if they drop anything here, we win this lane. Otherwise, if they drop a Moon Girl, we may lose it. If they drop a Moon Girl here but not here, that would give them +6. And so that would be just enough to swing this lane for them. Oh no, we didn't think about that. We may lose this. We may very well lose it. We're just gonna drop our Spider-Woman here. I don't think we'd play anything with the rest of our mana. We just kind of let it see. So if they have a Moon Girl, and they did play a card here, so it triggers our Mojo buff here. I think that was a misplay by Smigo. Smigo? I think it was a misplay. So they do start buffing up this card, but we just get so much upside from Mojo being capped out. I think it'll be close. So they're going to get +6. We're going to get +6. Do they have that lane? Oh, by 1. No, we have that lane by 1. And then our double Spider-Woman coming in, closing out the left-hand side. That felt... That's the same kind of feeling as our Kingpin, where it was very, very close. We have the tools to win, but just getting them there is just difficult. So had he dropped Moon Girl here, that would have given him 4 less power here, but it would have given us 6 less power. And so the play would have been to not allow us to trigger our Mojo, because that's what allowed us to win, was that Mojo buff. And so very, very fortunate that they dropped the Moon Girl here, but it was a misplay and we won because of a misplay. All right, guys, so we are going to go ahead and end the video here, where we pulled Green Goblin. We threw it into a Debris deck. It felt fairly solid. Now there are some games where we're going to run up against things like maybe an Infinite, that we're not going to be able to compete with that lane, but we have chances to win elsewhere. So maybe we'd still be able to pull those out. With Devil Dino being as common as it is, it felt like Rogue was a necessity. We teched it out at one point when we first started trying to pilot the deck, and it just didn't work. And so it felt almost necessary to have in our deck to operate efficiently. But the rest of the deck list felt pretty solid. It felt pretty conjoined. It felt like it worked well. I do think that I would drop Ebony Maw for Black Widow whenever we end up drawing her. That way we can play Black Widow. It causes them to play into our game where they drop stuff on their board to be able to draw cards again. And so I think Black Widow would be a good addition to this, and then maybe tweaking some of the other cards. Maybe we don't get as much upside out of Polaris, and we look at adding something else in. But overall, I think this deck list felt very solid, very fun to play, and it causes a lot of frustration and pain points for the opponent. So it's a disruption deck. It's not necessarily controlling the lanes and locking them down where they can't necessarily do anything, but it really limits their tools. And so by limiting their tools, they have to make the right decision at the right time to be able to get their resources out onto the board. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you liked it, make sure to give it a like. Make sure to leave a comment. I love responding, reading through the comments, and just seeing what you guys think. So if you guys enjoyed it, make sure you leave one down below. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.